Hey everybody, it's Kathy Klotz-Guest of Keeping It Human, and we're here with another Hangout. And today we are talking to somebody that I'm really excited to talk to because I actually followed him for a while, and then I finally got to meet Martin Shervington at Social Media Marketing World last year in March in San Diego. And it was really great because I feel like I know people, then I actually get to meet them, and it's really lovely when who they are in social media as you experience them and who they show up to be in person are the same. That's pretty awesome. So I'm really excited to talk to Martin today. Let me give you the intro. He doesn't need one, but like all guests, he's going to get one. So he's the founder and community manager of Plus Your Life and Plus Your Business. And he helps businesses grow by using Google and building communities. We're going to talk about storytelling. He's also a speaker and an author, and somebody near and dear to my heart because he also has stand-up comedy experience. And he actually studied at San Francisco Comedy College out near me in the Bay Area. So I'm very excited. So Martin, thanks so much for talking to me this morning about storytelling.
Thanks for having me here, Kathy.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Well, I want to talk to you. I want to jump right on in because nobody knows more about the changes to Google and Google Plus and Google Communities than you. I think you've been out there on the vanguard of all these changes. From a big picture perspective, how is Google making storytelling in communities more accessible? Can you give us that sort of 50,000-foot perspective?
I think the time is coming where people can find their voice and people know what they're into. Yeah. So there's somebody put a post out from Google earlier today, and they were talking about it was like what we call fire extinguishers. I don't know, fire hydrants, right? And this fire hydrant pictures and whatever had like 10,000 followers on it, and you go, okay, that's interesting. Somebody's kind of geeking out on this stuff. Now, there's a bit of legacy because people's followers moved over, but the fact is that there's still the stories that people are into fire hydrants. And what else are they into? Well, maybe Lego characters on beaches. Yeah. And I'm following some of this stuff, and you go, that's great because we've got really good niche verticals. Yeah. And what's happening is the stories that I'm seeing and hearing around the place is engagement is up. And engagement's up probably in part because people are following collections of these things that they're really into. So you engage upon it. So instead of following a person and going, do you know what? I like the stuff that you're doing on Lego, but I really don't like the stuff that you're doing on flower arranging, but I'm still following you and stuff. Actually, now I'll just unfollow the flower arranging stuff, follow the Lego stuff, and I'm happy. You know, and I think that that's going to be the dynamic shift, is that people will follow things, these collections, more than necessarily the person in the future. Now, what's going to happen, in my view, is that there's going to be a massive shift. There'll be like a giant earthquake-y thing within Google Plus. And I think us that have been around for a while are like, yeah, this is looking pretty good, because these things are likely in time to surface in Google search, because they'll become authoritative things, verticals, pieces of content that, a bit like Pinterest boards, which also surface in search, which then mean that more people from outside of the platform start to see it. But it's not just that. I mean, I'm also seeing an influx of new people coming in and following these collections. And Google are doing things within the algorithms to say, hey, could you be interested in? Which is what you'd expect, you know, so recommended collections are good based upon your history and experience and whatever you've suggested you're into. So I think that it's Google. Google are good at finding and following things that you do, because we know this from search, we know this from how they look at remarketing and things like this. You know, they want to be sustaining the relationship over time. And I think that the collections have given everybody a bit of a fresh kind of push on the platform, and Google are giving them a boost as well. There we go. 6 minutes, finished, done. We can finish that. That was it.
Well said. Well, you know, it's interesting to me because it makes sense. In the old model of circles, I didn't really understand that, because if you follow somebody, you know, whether they're a friend or they're a colleague or an acquaintance, really doesn't matter if what they're saying is important. But to your point, you may not follow everything they do, but you may share a passion, you share a common interest. So this seems like a more organic, just a common sense way to organize a community that's made ripe for storytelling, because people organize around passions and interests. They don't around people. I think the more sustainable view is that common interest. And Lego, you mentioned Lego. I mean, you and I both know they have such a rabid fan base and a big community, and the story of Lego is a big one. So I think this facilitates so much more richness, I think, in storytelling, it seems to me. So it's a good move, I think.
Yeah, and I think you're bringing up putting a little clarity for people around the terms, because you're bringing up the term community as well.
Yeah.
So 3 years ago, Google brought out Google Plus communities, and that allowed people who are into these things to share their, particularly if you look at public communities, to share their content into a public community. Now, the problem with public communities was that anyone can share just about anything. So the spam filters have to be trained, and the moderators have to flick out the spam, and then there's a few bits you're like, well, I'm not sure if I want that or not. So you have a lot of like almost decisions to make as a moderator, as a community owner. With collections, as it stands, they're yours. However, let's look what happened this week with Google Photos. Depends when this goes out. Recently with Google Photos. Google Photos, you can now share, and other people add photos to a particular album. It should be like a collection of photos in one place. Let's think about this. Look where this is going. You've got these collections, you've got these public communities, you've got this. Eventually, I think we may well see another little bit of transformation. I don't think we're through the final pivot that Google said that they're going to do for Google Plus. And I think that communities and communities are like shared collections, really. There's something, you're into something, and you're all gathered around that thing, but anyone can share. Collections are on their own at the moment, so it's like maybe there's something going to happen.
That's a great question. I'm glad you clarified that, because I have used them interchangeably, but that's not so with Google platform. They're different. Do you think that next pivot's going to be somehow integrating these two and they become one, or do you think there's enough distinctiveness between the two that it's separate? Because it seems to me part of the beauty of Google is these integration points. So do you think that's going to go there?
I'm just going to watch and see.
Yeah. No, fair point. To me, it's really interesting to watch, because I jumped on Google Plus pretty early, and I think it was a great experiment for Google. I think a lot of people didn't get it. It took off in the technical communities. I see a lot of technical groups organized around Google Plus, but I didn't see it spread to brands as much. So it'll be interesting to see maybe if brands look at communities and collections differently. I think that'll be the really interesting part.
I think if brands, I mean, I think it's called Minecraft Gallery. It's a friend's brand page, and I put something out the other day, and he said he's almost double the reach of his content since collections came. And he got 3 million followers on the page, but the fact was that he saw this as a big plus, and he's a publisher. I mean, they're of a publishing background. It's like, if you look at the values of eyeballs, then it's like, well, this is happening. It's happening now. People are able to find the people who are into the things that they're into, and if you post, then you get the reach. If you look at Facebook as a comparison, you put Facebook down. I spend a lot of time on Facebook because there's a community there.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But, and I do my daily joke. I'm talking about my daily joke, which anyone, it may have stopped by the time this comes out. But anyway, but the fact is, I'm over there and there's a community over, and that's great. But the business page, it's not. I don't get a lot of engagement on it,
No.
And over on Google Plus, if you tag with the right things, if you focus on niche, then we've got an opportunity. And this is before it hits search. If it hits search, just speculating.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think what I've found with Facebook anyway for the business pages, people are like, no, I want to follow you on your personal page. I'm like, but that's where they want to engage, and so I feel like I've lost that battle, and so I've caved, and I'm like, okay, follow me here, and if it's not your thing, then go to my business page. But that's.
Isn't it interesting? Let's talk about this, because you're talking about storytelling. I went through this year on my Facebook. I think even last year, after the Social Media Marketing World, the first conference that I went to, 2014, I kind of just caved and gave up and accepted that my Facebook was going to be everything. It was going to be all my friends from school, university, all the people in the life in between, and all of the new social media, all into one. It wasn't going to be this app. It wasn't going to be this business bit. It was everything. But what happens is, on a personal level, you tell stories. I think about, what am I saying? Because I have friends, if I put out something that's always been really difficult, this, something, I have friends phone me and go, "You're right, mate. That's not what you normally do on Facebook." And it's like, folks, it's not you anymore. It's all of these other people that are around that don't know me as well. So there has to be some communication. There has to be some story. There has to be, some continuity, really, in the storyline for them to understand that the person that they met. Let's take the example. I've done my pivot from Google Plus to Google for Business, and so I'm doing the AdWords agency work and lots more Google My Business, loads of reviews, and all of this. And people, you don't know it unless you gradually build trust, communicating that you're into these things. That's kind of how social media works. That's how brand building works. So I've needed to allow my Facebook to just become whatever, whatever I'm into, whatever I need to communicate, and that was a transition for me.
Yeah, me too as well. Me too. You're doing some really interesting things, and I want back to the storytelling, because your whole We Dig movement, which I think is really great. I think it's organic, it's neat, and I love the way that when you introduced this idea and you talked about the We Dig.
I'm even branded, so
Well, no, and I love it, because I love when you sort of came up with this idea and you were talking to people in San Diego, and then you did this video and you had all these funny interviews, and you realized that the story, when you tell a story, you give somebody a chance to come back and follow the story. So serial storytelling is something that you started doing. Talk to me about that, because I think it's so fascinating, your insight in what you've learned from your We Dig movement. I think it's really cool.
So what happened? Sorry, I put it on the speaking for like 20 minutes now, Kath. You shouldn't never give me the stage. You should never give me the mic. You should always be hovering on the edge. Okay, so when I was in social media marketing world, I set out to create interviews, and it was going to be Chris Rowley and Jay Baer and Joe Pulizzi, and it's like, we're going to create the best podcast in the world, and the universe had other plans. It just didn't work like that, and it wasn't because they weren't interested. It was because I bump into people, and I'd say, "Hey, how you doing? Great." And after a few moments, a few minutes, have you got 10 minutes to have an interview? And it was anybody I connected with. As opposed to, I'm going to create this beautiful thing that I think we created exactly what we created. And the stories and the connections and the diversity. I mean, I think there was 15 interviews. And then what I did after that, I mean, it was the whole thing was a spiritual journey, Kathy. But the whole thing it really was. Then I came away and went, wow, what a movie that would make. And it really would. It was a bit. And so what did I do? I said, I'm going to have to write this up as a book, a short book. So I then took all the videos and wrote about the 3 days. I wrote 12 chapters about the 3 days with the videos embedded so that people could see. So it had this enormous sort of narrative around what happened in the room, which is in my room with the 15 videos. And it was like a journey within a journey, a story within a story. And by the end of it, if anybody wants to read the story, I'll have to give them the links. But by the end of this whole thing, I was just watching reality from a very different place. It was really quite a strange thing, because I simply went with it. As opposed to doing what we usually do, what I usually do, which is forcing the outcome. I want it to be like this. It's like, that's not what's going to happen here. It's bumping into somebody that smiles and goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" It's like, "What are you doing? Let's go in this film. You got the camera guys there. You're interested, bring your friend." And admittedly, people are like going, "Hold on, what are you doing filming in the room? Strange things." But it's like, all we're doing is talking about you. And what are you into? People like Ryan Hanley and Dustin Stout and Neil Schaefer. And it wasn't about social media. This is the key thing. It was about, what are you into? And the amount of times, Kathy, that people go, I'd say, people were talking openly about, do they believe in God or not? Do they, what is their view on certain perspectives? And it was like the stuff that we don't tend to talk about, the stuff that people are frightened of talking about very often openly, unless they are, sort of very open about it. There's a lot more to what I just said. But the thing is that people opened up. They opened up, and it was human. It was really human. So that was the start of part of me going, okay, well, how do you tell better stories? So that was. So then, moving on to many months later, I decided to do my joke of the day on Facebook. And I know most people will look and go, when's he going to stop?
No, keep going.
Different joke every day. But the thing's this, I have a view. It's about discipline.
Yeah.
How to take over the world, one little bracket, you fill in the gap at a time. How do you take over the world? One joke at a time. One post at a time, one conversation at a time, one community at a time, one hug at a time. Whatever it is, when you start to break it down and repeat the action over and over and over, day in, day out, firstly, you get known for something. So if we're talking about authority within the social media space, you get known for it. So it doesn't have to be one thing. I could be doing one joke a day. I could be doing one stat at a day, because I like statistics and things like that. I can be going for, one page a day or one person I promote a day, whatever it is. But that's the point, I think, for everybody is repeatable, small steps daily. After 6 months or a year or 2 years or 3 years or however long it takes, you start to get known. And start to get known, and you're consistently doing something. So that's the next phase that we're moving into, which I'll then be encouraging people and giving them a bit of structure is, what are you going to do every day? What are you going to do that displays to the world publicly that you're into that particular thing? And I think that, again, the whole branding, the heart's one of the apart from the heart, the actual, the heart of what we did, which is just find your passion, lead your people. That's all it is. And it's a brand that everyone owns. It's not going to get trademarked. It's not going to have any, it's a heart with just simply symbolic of just have passion. And I think that what's happened with the collections, what's happened with the communities, is you can find those people. And one of the things I find, I'm into the singularity and I'm into transhumanism, I'm into some pretty geeky stuff. It turns out that, it's gone a little more fringe. I'm buddies with the guys running for president for the Transhumanist Party. And it's like, over on Google Plus, it's like, yeah, it's kind of cool. It's kind of hip. On Facebook, weirdo. That's what I get, weirdo, because it's different people. So you find the audience and you keep on repeating over and over the things that you're into in different ways. And eventually you go, well, people go, do you know what? You know about that thing. You've been into this for a long time. And in fact, Chuck Wang, it was somebody I interviewed on that first wave. And he surfaced in search in Google. He found something I was talking about, VR, I think almost like 3 years ago. And he said, wow, you're into it back then. And it's like, yeah, I've been really into this stuff for a long time. And I'm there. If anyone, VR, I love what's happening with VR. I've got lots of different bits all over the place. Love it all. But unless you put it out there, people don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be the first. I was the first. I'm going to say this. I'm so proud of this. Terrible comedy. I was the first person, I think, which is always vague, isn't it, to do stand-up with Google Glass. And I had a picture. I had the Google Glass Vision one way. It's on YouTube, and the audience filming it from the other way. And I put it out there. Awful set, Kathy. But I mean, I did it. What I'm going to do, I'll be doing my comedy with VR as soon as I get the camera, which will be in January. So that's going to be my next thing. It's in order to take seriously how it works, you kind of integrate. I'll display to people, I'm really into VR, and I tell jokes.
That is a great way to blend that fourth wall and to bust and sort of break down that fourth wall barrier, which I love in comedy to be able to talk to the audience. And I very much like to use improv in my stand-up comedy, because that's where the beauty is having the audience kind of interact with you. So I love that you're doing that. So I'm gonna have to go look at that video. And I love that you're talking about storytelling being organic, because I don't doubt that it's a spiritual journey. I think storytelling is a fundamentally spiritual journey, because you can't help but be changed by the stories that you tell. And a friend of mine who's an author on storytelling, has a PhD in folklore, says, you don't change story changes you. And I think the more that you allow that to happen, you do see these kind of passions and organic interests bubble up. And you're touching people in a way that I think really is outside the social media bubble, but at their human interest layer. And that's when you get people, that's where the emotional surface area and the stickiness is, I think. And how is this working for you narrative-wise, sort of in the work you're doing with your business and with your collections? Are you seeing sort of the We Dig movement, people sort of jump on and want to talk to you wherever you go about it? And how is that becoming sort of a co-owned movement?
I think people don't know what to do with it at the minute, to be honest, and I'm okay with that. And I said from the start, when I started, there's so much of a backstory as to how the actual concept came together. But I said to people, you won't understand it until it works, if it does work. I said, just let me run with it. I've been doing this for a while, and I'm trying something which is radically different to anything I've done. It's not contained in like a month or a week or a little kind of project or anything else. What I'm trying to do is help people to see that if you can display you're into something, it makes the world a difference. And what happened, it was at a time where Google Plus, we'd taken a battering. It was a rough sea out there, Kathy. It was a hard time. Yeah. And now that collections, well, actually not because of collections, that was a part, but now the new platform's launched with Google Plus, it's been reborn. And I think that the enthusiasm, the things that I was setting my community up for, I said, you're going to have to focus on collections, create a weeded collection. And I knew ahead of time, I knew where things were going. And I said, look, this has to be done. You've got to get into this. You've got to start thinking, not in terms of people, but in terms of individuals. And so they were doing that. And I would say that the next phase will be one thing a day, just one thing a day. And that hopefully people will start to go, oh, he's been on about this for a while, right? We've got to kind of find our passion, lead our people, right? Because here's the funny thing, just linguistically, people talk about, oh, I've got 1,000 followers. And it's like, well, okay, you're leading 1,000 people's attention. That's what you're doing. Yeah. So flip it around the other way and go, well, are you leading well? Are you taking those people's attention to somewhere which is actually useful? Are you making them excited, enthused, and educating? I think one of the things that got my attention on Google Plus originally that I never had to the same extent on Facebook, I've got it more now because of how I do my newsfeed, but you get some really interesting stuff. You learn. It's about learning. And I think that that's the piece. When you're passionate about something, you've probably learned a lot, and you're probably happy to keep learning a lot, and you keep going in that. When you're not learning much, you're not passionate. So I think there's a relationship between the two things. In terms of business, I still do my influencer marketing type, it's strange time, but people come to me and work on projects, and I help promote. But I'm a marketer. I mean, I will put in place people's funnels, and AdWords obviously is a big thing for us now going forward. But more than anything, this year has been navigating to a point where I can see and move strategically, and I'm pretty much there. Not totally there, but pretty much there. But it's been a ride. It has.
Yeah, no doubt. And watching you, I think it's really interesting because the way that I'm looking at it, it's fundamentally interesting to me. I think there may come a point where collections maybe overtakes in popularity, obviously, the traditional business approach, your business page, profile page, Google Plus. And so it seems to me Google will have to figure out a way to have these things flow or be connected in some meaningful way, because it may just fundamentally be an inflection point where people are just tired of the business marketing and they just want to connect with you around that shared interest in that collections. And that's really a fundamental change in the way marketers really are thinking about their businesses. It's like, does it matter that people are connecting with me at my Google Plus? Well, no, if nobody's coming back, but if they're connecting with me around a shared interest in my collections, that's where the conversation is going to start organically. So it's going to be really interesting. And I'm watching you go through this and I'm like, that's some interesting stuff. I haven't figured it all out yet, but I think
what you're thinking about is, what you realize when you've been around for a little while, you realize that you will not strategically change what's going to happen when it comes to Google, right? So the best option is to watch it and look at who's talking about what, if you're involved in certain communities and you just want what's going on, and then you make the best decisions when the time's right. And the things that you're talking about, I mean, I've put out publicly what my views are. And it's like, everybody just be aware that could be an opportunity that comes, and it's like, be aware, and that I doubled down on Google. It's like, the chips were down for me, and it's like double down, and it's like, oh, it's kind of worked all right, and the engagement right now is absolutely phenomenal, and that's the new platform. But the funny thing, talk about different communities, and people moved away. A lot of people moved away, or didn't get Google, or got it in the early days and then moved away. And what I'm seeing is different people at different time get the attention on different platforms. And a lot of people moved away from Google Plus and almost said, well, it's just dead, and I'm just going to leave it and so on. That's going to be interesting to see if they come back, because they've got good followers, and they've got a great name, and they've got good interests, and they could lead people really well on the platform, but it's a different platform. It's not that grand integrated dashboard anymore. I don't know if you've seen my whole postings on it, so I won't guilt you if you haven't for not reading everything I put out. But the perspective is mobile. Yeah. That's the way to go. So if you wanted to talk about storytelling, I think that the best stories can be done in the real world with a mobile. Google's got Google Photos, which auto-creates stories and movies, and it's got cool things in the apps. People are hardly using it publicly on chat, hardly touching on it. So I think that's going to be huge when people really crack into how to take that into those collections in particular. But also, and I put this out as a prediction for this year because somebody asked me, I think the way it's going to go with VR in the next year, I think that YouTube, having the 360 videos, is already there. I think that we may well see something crazy happen when it comes to different social media platforms. I'm not going to say any more because I don't know, but why tweets are integrated at the top of Google search, I think is really interesting. And I think that Twitter and Periscope is interesting. So let's just see, because Periscope's great for storytelling. You know, Hangouts, we're in a Hangout now. I like Hangouts. Hangouts now have become a really big part of what we do and what we've done in the past. But they're static. They're static conversations, you know, and the world has increasingly gone mobile. So how can that go out in the world? And I look at other platforms, and I like Blab, and we were talking about Blab on there, and the conversational platforms. But I think that the real energy comes when you visit the Eiffel Tower, or you visit suddenly, and we had that in the early days a lot more with Hangouts on Air, where people would take us on tours and things. And I think that kind of I think that world for social, if you want to look at storytelling, I think that can come back really, really quickly. And I suspect that next year, the way things are going, I think VR, there's new cameras coming out and things like that. I'm incredibly excited. I just want to get all of that done and start to play with jokes. I'd like to tell jokes in VR from all different places in the world, just because it's there to be done, do you know? And it's a novelty factor, but it's also about community building.
I think that's phenomenal. I was going to ask you, and you answered. I think those are some great, bold, and I think really spot-on predictions. I think for storytelling next year, I think it's really experiential. The tools are there, and it is a mobile world. And I love the experiential, even improvisational, which makes me happy, world of Blab and some of these other tools, because you're telling that story as you're experiencing it in the moment. And to me, it's the ultimate experience. And so I think the whole world of storytelling changes just dramatically next year. And I'm going to be looking forward to seeing you do the VR on a comedy stage. I think that's going to be actually pretty amazing. I want to see the audience's reactions. I want to find out about how that goes.
I do stand up around this stuff. I did it in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And you know, I do a lot of tech stuff, but specifically on VR, not that funny. It's just not that funny. It's okay. I've got some sets on YouTube. It's all right. But what I find that's nice is not actually caring about the audience reaction and just getting on and just do it. Do you know what I mean? But you know what it's like is that when you're doing it because you care about the audience reaction, you get hurt, you get upset. It's a bit like, I only got 5 likes on my post because it doesn't matter. Get up on stage and do it again. Keep on going. You just keep on going, and because it's you at the time within the context. And that's the thing. So we'll see. It's going to be dynamic next year.
Yeah, I very much agree. And I'm so with you. I mean, when I take a stage now, I can't worry about the audience reaction. I have stories I'm going to tell from my perspective, and the stronger my stage persona, I get a reaction, but that's because the lens to which I'm telling my stories. It's like, the minute I walk on stage, I'm a mom, I'm a working mom, I own a business, I ain't got time for your nonsense. And that's my stage persona. And it just, everybody has a mom. And so you don't worry about the universality of it, because I think you're going to find your audience, and the people in that room that really connect with what you're saying, they will come up and tell you. They find you.
Well, let's talk about this, because let's just take this out. So as soon as I change from doing my daily joke on Facebook, assuming I'm still there, and I flip it into VR, I have massively narrowed who can watch it, because you're going to have either Google Cardboard or an Oculus Rift. So it's going to be massively taken down. And yet the relatability for that material suddenly changes.
Yes.
because they are entering into the next platform. Virtuality is the next platform. So, from a social point of view, these are my bold, you get me at the end of the year, bold predictions. For
yes, I love it. I love it.
The next platform is going to be VR. And so how we connect, these are the closest, these things, when the Hangouts with multiple people is the closest experience I think you could get into a sort of an absorbed world, these inner worlds. And in the early days, I used to walk around with a computer attached to me for months at a time, and the world would be blocked out, and I would be flipping between like New York and Chicago. Honestly, I'm not joking. I'm talking maybe a year and a half, and eventually like unplug, and that's like in the Matrix. Really. So the point is that was available to us then, but the next step is going to be that VR kits. And in fact, did you see the teddy bear, the virtuality teddy bear I posted about? You didn't follow my stuff, did you? Anyway, it's a great. I do. Okay, so it's a great thing, just messing with me. They're talking about virtuality and a teddy bear being, you move your hands and the little teddy bear moves his hands and moves his head and all of this sort of stuff. And the point is, next year, that's going to go onto Kickstarter. There's new equipment. Yeah. And I look and go, that's going to narrow my audience and yet increase the potential niche and dedication. And we'll see. But there's ways around it. On YouTube, you can do both.
You can do both, yeah. No, I think you're right, but you bring up a really good point, getting back to sort of this idea of niche audiences. And actually, when you double down on your audience, that's when things kind of open up, because you're not, I mean, I'm talking to a marketer. It's the traditional segmentation approach. If when you double down on that audience, using the tools and using the language that they know, and geeks love VR, Silicon Valley, you came out of San Francisco, you speak that language, you automatically open up an audience, and that early adopter audience, that's where it starts. So that is actually a really smart beachhead strategy. What you're talking about is doubling down on that audience and knowing who that audience is. So I'm excited for storytelling as well. And I want to sort of segue really quickly, because I know time is of the essence for you. And I think you answered it earlier. I wanted to get back to this idea of a time when you sort of, proverbially dropped the script. You basically, had a high plan and you kind of threw it out. And I think you sort of answered it when you talked about your storytelling, when you had an idea, when you invited people for interviews, and then you realized, no, it's going to go where it's going to go. Storytelling will flow where it's going to go. And you kind of let go. It sounds like,
I had it then. I also had it soon after I came back. I found that I was trying to force things online. Yeah. And I couldn't. I have a thing, which is, if I see clearly, if I see strategically, then I can move. And if I can't, then I can't make what I would consider to be the best moves. And I just have to make small steps, no grand plan. So I came back out of this kind of like wild, hippie, bloody Californian hippie state. I haven't lived in the States for quite a while. And Phoenix was another story. But I came back, and I was almost like tripping over myself, and I just found the groove had gone. Like, this is not. So I then spent 3 months pretty much not posting on Google Plus. Nothing. I was in private communities. I was running my private community. Nothing. And a couple of people were like, what's going on? Where's it going? What's going on? It's like, I cannot see how to do this right. So I'm going to stop. And I was still on Twitter, and I was still on Facebook and whatever. But that was a big thing for me. That was me feeling ready enough not to continue in a way until the point came. And when I came back, I was like, yeah, now I know what I'm doing. And it's great. And that resurgent. And I said to people, sometimes you need like a commercial break. Well, not a commercial break. You need a break in your story.
Yeah.
Just pause, go between episodes. You don't have to kind of go back to back, because when you've been doing this for a while, you day to day, there's a routine, there's a pattern, it's like, actually don't get stale. Come on, and there's a degree of reinvention, and you can see this. A lot of people do this. It goes in waves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, absolutely.
It may happen again.
Yeah. Well, if you're reinventing yourself, that's for sure. Martin, what's your final thought? If you could leave sort of one thought, because you said a lot of really bold, audacious predictions, which I love for storytelling. If you were going to just say to the audience, just one thing about, Google platform and really sort of breaking it down to make it work for you next year, what's one piece of advice where you tell people to start?
Find 10 people that you relate to.
Mm-hmm.
Go and build a relationship with them. That's the start. I mean, people say, join a community, find the people in the community. Just find 10 people, whatever which way. Don't worry about your own content for the first month. In particular, still, having said that, I think that people can post a bit, and they may get lucky, and they could get a bit, but you're still going to need to get eyeballs. You still need people following you in order for your content to show up in their stream. A few parameters on that, and there's a bit of remapping going on, but I'll still stick with it. But find the 10 people, and then find the next 10, and find the next 10, and gradually build out the network. And if you can, go and hang out with them. Jump on Skype. Jump on a Facebook call. Also, if they're not here, go and find them on Twitter. Go and find them on Facebook. Even if you've got intent of making Google Plus your home, if there's other people out there, don't just stay on the one platform. Go and find where they are. And then, because it's all moving around.
Yes.
You know, and the attention goes, you know, let's say something crazy happens and Google ends up with Periscope. Suddenly, you Periscope overnight. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So don't assume it's all about, you know, one platform. I think there's a lot of stuff happening.
I agree. Totally agree. Well, I'm going to quote something because I loved it. It cracked me up. And as somebody who writes comedy, I loved it. You said, "Be the strange you want to see in the world." So yeah. I love that. I love that twisting a little bit of what Gandhi said, but I think that's very true. Embrace your inner weird. Martin, where can people find you? Where would you like people listening who are going to listen to this to experience you?
I am on Google Plus. That's my weird and wonderful. So that is my strange. So I have 2 collections: Life, the Universe, and Everything. A lot of VR. A lot of spiritual stuff, a lot of kind of consciousness stuff. So that's I really like that. And then I have a business collection called Business Connecting the Dots. And there's always 2 things: life and business. So I have a community plus your life, and I have a community plus your business. So find me on Google Plus. Go to plusyourbusiness.com if you're interested in talking business, and go from there.
And I got to say, Martin, your videos are fun. In fact, where I first found you was when you were talking to my homegirl, Amy Harrison. She's really more your homegirl because I'm not British, but I loved the interview that you did with her. And I was like, oh my God, that was brilliant. And I kept coming back. I kept coming back for more. And I think that's where I was like, oh my gosh, how did I not know about Martin before? Like, why did I not know this?
She makes life easy to be funny. She's great.
She's wonderful, as are you. So keep doing what you're doing. Everybody check out Martin's stuff. He's got a lot of really great stuff to say. And I think you've pioneered the way on Google Plus, and now Google the other platforms and collections for the rest of us. So come back to the States, please. I'm back in January. Oh, yay! Okay. All right. Well, when you're back, ping me. Hopefully we have a party or something where everybody in the Bay Area can come and welcome you home. So, Martin, thanks so much, and happy holidays. Yeah. And to you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.